Happy Friday, everyone. This is the Freedom Club Podcast. I am your host, Curt Mercadante, and I hope you have had an amazing week. If not, I want you to go back. I want you to think about every little thing you did this week, every input for every hour, for every day of this week. And then I want you to audit your week. What worked? What didn't? Identify those 20% of inputs that brought you 80% of the way to the outcomes that you wanted to achieve. And next week, I want you to focus on those 20% and eliminate, delegate, offload as many of those other useless inputs that have filled your week over the past 5, 6, 7 days. Because I want you to have an outcomes-focused week next week, and that is the way to be truly productive. I'm so happy you're here today. And by the way, today's episode is brought to you by the 30-day Total Freedom Lifestyle Transformation course. It's my course. It's an online course. Yes, it's over 30 days. Every 5 days, you'll receive a new video along with actionable steps you can take to adapt the 5 pillars of the freedom lifestyle to your life so you can finally escape to a life of freedom. If you want to jumpstart your freedom lifestyle, go to curtmercadante.com right now, click on Freedom Course, and sign up for the course. Now, today's episode is taken from a speech I gave a few weeks ago in New York City to Richard Moore, and the topic of my talk is vision-based storytelling. Now, it's marketing focused, but I think as you'll find, vision is one of the 5 pillars of the freedom lifestyle as well. I talk a lot about vision, about pairing your purpose and your impact to create that vision. Now, I talk about it in the realm of telling stories for marketing. But as you'll find, there are also some very relevant lessons for your life, for your freedom lifestyle, figuring out and embracing your story, where you've been and where you want to go. That is so vital to the freedom lifestyle. So I hope you enjoy today's episode of the Freedom Club Podcast.
Welcome to the Freedom Club Podcast, where we strive to pull you out of your life of quiet desperation, out of your comfort zone of misery, and propel you into a life of freedom and fulfillment. And now, here's your host for this journey, international speaker and coach, and serial entrepreneur, Curt Mercadante.
So, when Richard asked me to talk about online content, I've done a lot of videos on LinkedIn. How many of you here have seen at least one of my videos on LinkedIn? So I've done a lot of videos on LinkedIn, and I didn't set out to become a video producer. I'm a coach. And I get a lot of questions. The number one questions I get are, what camera should I use? What tripod should I use? What tool, right? And the bottom line is, who cares, right? 98% of my videos have been done with my iPhone. I used to have a shaky hand. Now I got a cheap tripod. I got a cheap, selfie stick, if they even call them those anymore. And so I'm going to talk about something a little different than the tools and the techniques to making videos. I'm going to talk about something called vision-driven storytelling. And first, a quick intro to me. My name's Curt Mercadante, as you know. Over the course of 13 years, I scaled a successful 7-figure public relations and ad agency. I shut it down to coach. I'm going to tell that story in a little bit more. And so I do that through speaking. I have the Freedom Club podcast. I build online communities, paid and free. I do workshops, online courses, etc. So today I really want to talk about storytelling. My hero, Steve Jobs, had a quote that he said, the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. From my own personal experience, storytelling, specifically on LinkedIn, has been a game changer for me. When I first shut down my agency to coach, I was like, okay, well, I need some clients. And I hired a consultant. I spent $20,000 doing the webinar route, Facebook ads. How many clients do you think I got off that? 0. No clients. So I decided, you know what? I think I'm going to pull the plug on this and go back to basics. And I just started making a video every single day for 90 days. And over that time, I started to build audience, started to interact with other people who were making videos. And the views, started at 50, went to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. But after close to 90 days, I didn't have a single client still. I'm like, this ain't going too well. So my coach, who was my new coach at the time, Fraser Cameron, who some of you may know, who does great videos on LinkedIn, he said, listen, your videos are great, but you're talking about your program. You're talking kind of about yourself in the way of like, join my program. Here's what it will do for you. Here's how wonderful it is. And he said, why don't you talk about some of the struggles you've had in building your agency, building a business, and some other struggles, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And so I said, okay. And at one point in my business, I felt like I had been building a prison instead of a business. I felt trapped. I started talking about that in a video. Actually, I did one about escape from prison. First week, I got 3 clients. So it is all about storytelling. I'm going to talk about, it's not just about getting up in front of a video and speaking. It's about telling a compelling story. And I want to talk about vision-driven storytelling. But first, I want to talk about my story a little bit because it's appropriate to what we're doing today. So I'm wearing a Punisher t-shirt. And for those of you who ever watch my videos, I always wear superhero t-shirts. And last night I actually posted online and I said, should I wear the Punisher t-shirt? And I said, sorry if some of you are triggered by this violent superhero. And lo and behold, one guy on LinkedIn, he was triggered and talked about how violent the Punisher is. And if he walked into the room and saw me wearing a Punisher t-shirt, he would rock right out. And I politely told him that that was the lamest comment I'd ever read and that he now guaranteed I was going to wear the t-shirt. But people often ask me why I wear superhero t-shirts. And growing up, I was kind of an only child. I have a number of siblings, but they were all half brothers, half sisters. Some of them are 20 years older than me. So I was an only child. And so there was a lot of self-play, a lot of superhero movies. At the same time, my dad was kind of like a real-life Tony Stark, Iron Man. He worked on the space program, which we didn't know until after he passed away. We found a letter thanking him for his work on the Mercury Mariner mission. He told me stories of being, when he worked for Honeywell, he'd be out in the desert helping design fighter jets. My brother told me that my dad, I don't know if it's true or not, my brother tends to lie a lot, that my dad helped design one of the first shoulder-fired missiles. He led the team that designed all the electronic switches on the Boeing 777. So at the time, my dad's out saving the world in my mind. And so the whole superhero theme has been with me forever. And when I started coaching, actually last May, I was doing all these videos. And I was at a WeWork in Plano, Texas. And I was going to speak. And I was changing in the bathroom because I had just flown in. And I had a sport coat and I had a Captain America shirt. And I had my nice pressed white dress shirt. And it's kind of funny. We had eaten Korean barbecue. And so I was feeling really fat and bloated. And I looked down and I was like, you know what? I feel like wearing a t-shirt today. I don't feel like my belt's not going to fit. So I put it on and everyone was like, oh my God, Captain America t-shirt, wore it in the video. And ever since then now, when I don't wear a superhero t-shirt, people call me on it. And it's become part of my story. In the story, not only I tell about myself, but how I got to where I was. In 2012, my father passed away. And I was in the midst of crushing it with my PR and ad agency. And I was sitting there at his wake. And all these wonderful things my dad had done over the years, there's grown men crying, tears in their eyes. Not a one person mentioned anything he ever did in his career. They talked about how present he was for his kids at all our recitals, soccer matches, baseball games. They talked about his volunteer work at the church, reading audiobooks for the blind. And I was sitting there and, I had built some freedom with my agency, but it was a slap in the face because I wasn't as present as he was. I wasn't as present with my family. I was overwhelmed. I was traveling. I was working all hours of the day. And I just sat there and thought, what the hell am I doing? My dad set the example for me. And yes, I had some freedom. I certainly had financial freedom, but I didn't have fulfillment. And right then and there, I decided to make a change. I didn't know how I was going to make the change. And around that time, people came to me to start coaching them because I had built a successful business. And so I started coaching them. And over time, I realized at the end of the day, when I coached, I didn't have that feeling anymore, like I wasn't doing what I was meant to be doing. And I really started loving the coaching and hating my agency. But, I was scared. The almighty dollar made me fearful to follow my passion, follow what I love. Actually, not even my passion, my purpose. And so I had a 3-year plan. well, maybe I'll ramp down the agency and ramp up the coaching. And one Tuesday morning, I was sitting there and I'd been having anxiety attacks just because I hated the work, hated the agency. And one Tuesday morning, I woke up and it was supposed to be a week off. It was Thanksgiving week. And the day before, my clients kept hounding me, jump on this email, send us this report, get on the conference call. And the following week, I was supposed to fly up to DC to participate in a 7-hour meeting, which the year before in that same meeting, we were yelled at like children for being low energy at 8:30 in the morning on a Monday when it was about 12 degrees. I had given up my Sunday to fly out for it. So I'm sitting there, I'm laying there in bed on Tuesday, and I decided that's it, I'm done. But oh shit, now I gotta go tell my wife. So I got up and I went over to Julie and I said, listen, it's done, I'm done. And I kind of cringed, I waited for it. She looked at me and said, it's about damn time. I shut down my 7-figure agency overnight, began coaching. I already told you that kind of 3 months of nothingness when I tried to make the videos. So the reason I tell this story is this. Marcus Aurelius Anderson, who some of you may know online, is a great mindset coach. This is a guy who at 37 years old, to honor a promise to his favorite uncle who had just passed away, joined the army, got a waiver to join the army. He was preparing to go overseas. He was training. He was crushing it in, crushing youngsters in basic training, was training in the mountains in upstate New York. And long story short, he literally broke his back. He died twice on the operating table, came back, was paralyzed for a full year. Over that time, he learned a lot about himself. He's got a book called The Gift of Adversity and came to understand that his adversity was a gift, a wake-up call to teach him and empower him to go help others. But when I interviewed him on his podcast, he said this quote that has always stuck with me: adversity is not a competition. And the reason I bring this up is, listen, I started out by telling my story. Then I tell his story, right? I should feel ashamed about telling my story compared to his. But the fact of the matter is, each and every one of us has a story, no matter how big or small you think that story is. And I'll point to LinkedIn because that's where I'm most active. That's where a lot of us are most active. There's 562 million active users. Whatever story you have to tell, there's a really good chance that like 10 million of those people went through the same thing you went through. And so by telling your story, you're helping them, you're helping build an audience, you're empowering them to realize they're not alone, but you're also helping get some clarity in your life. Because what I found with my clients is that getting them to embrace their story and really tell them stories, not just to other people, but to themselves, gives them clarity about how far they've come and where they need to go, and where they want to go. Just to tell you, give a quick highlight. The reason I show these is, that's when I first started making videos. If you could see it, it was real shaky. I look like I'm about to French kiss the screen, right? This one I did, I was like testing new things. That's back when I wore a suit, Then fast forward, we did a successful event in London. Based on some videos I was doing, I went and I got paid to go out and do a speech at a startup, do actually a 2-day workshop at a startup accelerator in Cairo, Egypt. It's completely changed my life, simply storytelling and telling those stories online. And just off LinkedIn, not counting my speaking workshops, LinkedIn generated over 6 figures for me last year, just from storytelling. And so I want to talk a little bit about today. This is actually, so that's my family. Last year, we went on a 2-week drive around California, mountains, beaches, et cetera. And the reason I love showing this is because this was at the same time I was supposed to be at those planning sessions. Then I quit my job, and we just up and went to California instead. So a lot of people talk about creating, and creating is extremely important, but I see a lot of people putting up a lot of shit content because they're not creating with intention. There's someone, I won't name his name, he's not in this room, don't worry. He came to me and he was doing great content, and he was doing like interviews with other people, he was getting a ton of views, he was trying to build a business, and he came to me and said, I'm just not getting any clients, why not? And I said, because I watch all your videos, it's great. If I had $10,000 to give you right now, I don't even know what the hell you do. He was hiding behind almost giving his brand away to other people, interviewing other people, getting a lot of views, but he wasn't creating with intention. I had no idea what he was doing. And so with my coaching clients, one of the number one things we do, I actually have something called the Freedom 5 that I'm going to be rolling out, and I'll talk about it a little bit at the end, is to craft your clear life vision. Now, with an individual, that's, if you were going to die 20 minutes from now or 20 years from now, what's that 1 or 2 sentences that you would want the person delivering your eulogy to say that sums up your life and your legacy, right? But if you're an entrepreneur, this is Entrepreneur Business Live, I always say that entrepreneurs, your business is an extension of who you are as a person. And so that vision for your life should match your vision for your company. But when you're creating stories as well, I think you should have a vision as well. Everything I do, I have the superhero story in, right? I talk about purpose. I talk about vision. Number one, I talk about freedom, right? Scott Davis, who's a marketing professor, I believe he's down south somewhere. And someone forwarded me a link. He was interviewing String Nguyen. And she said, who do you follow? What brands do you follow? And he said, oh gosh, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's bald, he has glasses and a beard, and he talks about freedom all the time. And I said, that I love that. Just remember the word freedom. That's all. I talk about it in everything I do, right? And so that is, the purpose I want to have, the impact I want to have, not only for my life, but for my clients and the people watching it. Now, my vision statement is to save the world by helping individuals fight for lives of freedom and fulfillment. Everything I do, my podcast, my videos, I've worked it into my speech today about online content, goes back to that. So when you're creating content, be intentional. Think about your vision. Think about the purpose you want to have for it and the impact you want to make on the world. Now, I put this little guy up there. Zach will appreciate this because you have to realize when you're making content, no one gives a shit about your company, your bells, your whistles, your features. No one. Over that 90 days when I was making videos, oh, my coaching program is the best in the world. It's so awesome. It's so awesome. There's a guy, he's not here tonight. He was going to come. He keeps asking me, how do I improve my LinkedIn videos? First of all, his videos look like a hostage video. I mean, it's like he's like a deer in the headlights. But beside that, he's just talking about himself the whole time. He's talking about his bells and his whistles. And I'm going to go back to Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs came back to take the helm of Apple, one of the things he said, the way we're going to bring the Apple brand back, he noted that they're spending a ton of money on branding and no one knows who they are. So the way we're going to bring this brand back, we're not going to talk about megahertz. We're not going to talk about circuits. We're not going to talk about our bells, our whistles. We're not going to talk about how bad Microsoft is. We have to have something deeper. And he created, he created this vision statement. People with passion can change the world for the better. Where the hell's anything about computers? Of course, the iPhone hadn't been invented yet. The iPod was soon to be invented, right? He went on, right after the speech, to launch an ad campaign called Think Different. Didn't even show a computer in it. Einstein, Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali, right? He created a vision that was much deeper, purpose and impact. He didn't talk about the bells, the whistles. Now that he's gone, they're showing their product a little bit more. Maybe that coincides with they're not doing as well as they were when he was heading up the company, right? But think about it, purpose and impact, not only for your life, but for what you are trying to sell, the audience you're trying to build. Why are you making that content? The second is build a community. There's a lot of people who create content like they're throwing a grenade. You throw the content up, right? And then you run for cover. You don't stick around to comment, to interact with people. You don't go on other people's content, right? It's like going to a networking event, grabbing your business card, throwing it at you and running the other way, right? It's the same thing. To build community, you have to interact with people. There's a number of people in this room I've done calls with. We've been on Zoom calls, etc. You got to keep building that community. I also like to say consistency beats intensity. There's a lot of people who come out and they're like, oh, I'm going to do the 30-day challenge. And then they do the 30-day challenge. They're like, I didn't make any money, and they give up. Or I made videos 5 days in a row. Oh, I didn't get anything, and they leave, right? It's consistency. I did the video every day for 90 days. I learned about what worked, what didn't. I got feedback from other people. I helped kind of find my voice. It actually helped by making content. It helped me figure out what my purpose was, because as you talk, you kind of can talk yourself into some things and learn a lot about yourself, even as you're trying to tell a story to other people. But this is what I definitely want to leave you with today. When you're creating content, think about the vision, your purpose for your business, your purpose for making the content, the impact you want it to have on people, and combine those, you create a compelling vision to tell your story, and that's when you're on fire. So with that, I'm going to turn over the mic. Thank you.